Mike McCool here with the Royal Examiner. I'm in the studio today with Pete Snyder. Pete is running for governor of Virginia, and we wanted to invite him in to kind of give us a little talk about his campaign, what he has plans for the Commonwealth in 2022, I guess it would start.
Absolutely.
So, Pete, take it away and tell me why should we elect you as governor?
Well, Mike, first and foremost, thanks so much for having me, and to all your viewers, thanks for listening in and watching today. And I want to be governor because I love the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we all do.
Sure.
Okay, but I am just sickened and saddened about what I have seen over the past 10 years. Virginia is used to leading America, right? We founded the single greatest startup in the history of the world, place called the United States of America, where Virginia founded the Virginia Company. Right. So for all those socialists that say that capitalism doesn't work and we don't have a good heart, forget Silicon Valley, we founded the greatest startup in the world, and we led it for a long time. But if we're going to be honest and have an honest conversation today with your viewers, we have failed. Our leaders have failed us. Our governors have failed us for the past 10 years. And not only have they failed us, they've embarrassed us. Governor after governor, how many times do we have to be the butt of late night jokes? How many times do we have to get phone calls from your family from across the country saying, hey, Mike, what are you Virginians doing and who do you have in office? But worse than all that, we face the single biggest crisis that Virginia has seen in over 100 years. And our governor and the people around him did next to nothing to help us. When it comes to testing early on, they had no plan. We were bottom of the barrel in testing. The shutdowns and executive orders have completely destroyed and ruined the lives of so many small business owners, tens of thousands across Virginia, to the fact that up until a couple days ago, we were 50 out of 50 in distribution of the vaccine. For those who want the vaccine, our sisters across the border in West Virginia were number one in the nation.
Right. And they're normally always number 50 on everything.
Right. And why are they number one? They actually have a business-minded governor who took charge and had a plan. And our governor, you know what he did? When our president stood up and said, hey, guess what? We're Americans, and we're going to have a vaccine within a year. Ralph Northam went to the press and said, President Trump is lying, and in my medical opinion, there is no way we can have a vaccine in a year. So he did nothing. I mean, get this. He bet against American ingenuity and sat on his hands, and that's why we're in the pickle that we are in right now. And then, lastly, and I think most importantly, we're a year into this mess, and most of our schools are still closed. We're losing a generation of students, and we're putting parents in an impossible situation. So why am I running for governor? I'm running for governor because we are in a horrible mess. And I would like to believe, and I'd like your viewers to believe, that I have the ingenuity, the hustle, and the plan, and the ability to pull us out of this mess and make Virginia lead again.
You mentioned a business plan. I understand you have a business background. Why don't you expand on that just for a minute?
I do. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've started many companies. My first in Virginia when I was 26 years old. And back in 1999, I started what became the first social media marketing company in the country, if not the world. And built that up over 12 years, creating hundreds of good paying Virginia jobs. We led the industry. We're one of the largest players. Sold it to a publicly traded company. And then I did, what I do best, which is start another company.
Another one. That's exactly what you do.
And I just love doing it. And for your viewers, the company I have today is called Disruptor Capital, okay? Right. And that name came from not only starting the first social media marketing business, but from a report card in the fourth grade that I brought home to my mom that said I was kind of disruptive in the classroom. Yeah. But it stuck, and I'm an angel capital investor. What that means is if you ever watch Shark Tank, that's what I do for a living.
Good.
And I'm blessed to work with entrepreneurs and help make ideas into reality.
That's always great to do because people say, well, ideas are a dime a dozen, but we need to get that little spark to move it on to reality.
That's it. You get in under the hood and you're working with people who want to change the world. And it's just, I'm truly blessed by the Lord to be able to do that.
Well, we appreciate that. One of the things that obviously this COVID phenomenon that we have going is going to be the election topic, I believe.
It should.
What people are going to be driving. But also, one of the topics that you stress on your card, too, is election fraud. And, when there's both sides of that coin. Some believe it, some that don't. But one thing I always wonder is, why do we need an ID card to do everything but not vote? How do you feel on ID cards for elections?
Mike, it makes absolutely no sense. Really, what is coming out of Richmond and what they're doing to our Commonwealth makes absolutely no sense. For me, when it comes to ballot integrity and electoral security, let me be very clear. I will not be the next governor of Virginia if my campaign doesn't have the most expansive, most extensive, and probably the most expensive voter integrity, ballot security operation that's ever been seen in a campaign statewide in Virginia. Because we need to. And part of this is cultural for Republicans, right? We play by the rules, so we don't understand and expect that other people don't. And look at it. We all go to, Republicans who go to your local unit meeting, we know what happens. In August, we don't have meetings because it's summertime.
Right.
And then you get to that meeting and you're sitting down in September and a clipboard comes in front of you and it has a couple people's names for who's going to cover inside and outside of different precincts at the polls. It goes around the room. It's maybe about a quarter of the way filled out. Fast forward to the October meeting. Same ratty piece of paper on the same clipboard, and maybe 8 more names are added. We're leaving a goalie out of the net for probably 2/3 of our precincts. That needs to change, and we're going to make sure that we have the most expansive project and program ever. Ken Cuccinelli, former Attorney General of Virginia and Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, is one of my campaign chairs. He is going to be overseeing and taking on all of those ballot integrity measures for me and my campaign. The other part of the equation is when you look around, and whether it's Democrats, independents, or Republicans, we are at an all-time low in belief in our electoral system. No matter how it got that way, for Democrats still believe that, we're at an all-time low. If I'm governor, that's my problem. And guess what? I'm going to fix it. We're going to make sure that Virginia has the best and most transparent laws in America. This is not a solo act. I'm going to bring a Republican majority along with me to Richmond, and we're going to get the job done so that Virginia, yet again, can lead the nation. Florida did it after they were an embarrassment for 2 months in the year 2000. We all remember hanging chads and things like that.
Exactly.
They marched to Tallahassee the very next year and fixed it, and that's why we never hear about issues in Florida anymore. We can do it here.
Right. In the news is Florida and New York, left and right. I mean, complete opposites of each other. And again, back to COVID, we're going to see what's the leadership of what's going to make the economy get back up. Are you killing the so to speak, you're killing the golden goose
Mike, we are. And, let's talk straight. COVID, this virus, kills people, puts them in the hospital, or makes them very, very sick. Okay, all those 3 things are true. But it did not kill our economy. It did not kill jobs. It did not kill small businesses. Our government did that. This is a self-inflicted wound that has devastated so many Virginians. And look, I have a personal story as it relates to that. I'll bet with your viewers out there, and I'll bet you, where were you, Mike, when you first learned that the world was falling apart and this thing was serious and everything was shutting down? Do you remember where you were?
Probably sitting at my desk working.
as one should be. I unfortunately was at a much worse place. I was in the worst place in the world that you'd want to be, which is Disney World.
Yes.
With my then 5-year-old daughter and my wife on spring break, elbow to elbow, next to people from all over the world. We realized that everything was shutting down. We hightailed it back home to Virginia, and we said, oh my gosh, how do we help? I don't have a medical background, nor does my wife, so we were useless on the front lines. But given these shutdowns, we know a thing or two about small business. Mm-hmm. My wife worked for a lot of good conservatives on Capitol Hill for 15 years. She took one look at the CARES Act. $2 trillion being pumped into our economy. Look, sometimes Washington has good intentions, sometimes they don't. let's give it to them. That was well intended. But my wife burst and said, there is no way that money is going to get in the hands of the people who truly need it the most.
Right.
Or if it does, it's not going to be in time. I mean, the dirty little secret, as you know here, most small businesses, they're not sitting on 2 years of cash reserves.
Exactly.
Or 1 year, or even 6 months or 2 months. The average small business has 2 weeks of cash on hand to take care of things. And we knew a lot of people would be dying on the vine. So we gathered some of our friends and neighbors together, started a nonprofit called the Virginia 30-Day Fund, which was aimed solely to be a lifeline to have people pay their payroll, keep the doors open, pay the rent, pay the lights, or pay health care for their employees. Little bitty small idea out of Charlottesville, Virginia. When you're dumb enough, Mike, to name your nonprofit the 30-Day Fund, you think you probably are only going to be needed for about 30 to 45 days.
Right.
You know, whatever happened to 15 days and we flattened the curve.
Right. Yeah, what happened to that?
11 months later, we're still here. And I'm proud to say that we have helped over 900 small businesses stay alive in Virginia. In the coming weeks, that number will hit at least 1,100. More so because of my technology background, we open sourced what we did so that other people in other states who raised their hands could help out in their states. We can give them the nonprofit status, which was they desperately needed, and the back end to do what they do. So I was really pleased in May. My friend Sarah Sanders from Arkansas raised her hand and said, Pete, I love what you're doing in Virginia. My home state of Arkansas desperately needs it. Can we partner and what can we do? And Sarah, if you know her, she goes full gusto into everything. She did a brilliant job in her home state of saving businesses. We then had friends from Mississippi do the same thing, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia. And then your viewers may know, and you may know, of a guy by the name of Dave Portnoy. Dave Portnoy is on Tucker Carlson a lot.
Right.
He is the founder of Barstool Sports. I like to believe that I'm a strong champion for small business. But I got to tell you, no one has articulated the plight of what big government is doing to small business owners better than Dave Portnoy. Finally, he had enough on a show with Tucker. And right before, 2 weeks before Christmas, he opened up his mouth and said, I got to put my money where my mouth is. I want to start a fund. He got flooded with applications, flooded with money. The very next day, his parent company called us up and said, hey, look, we love what you're doing. No one's doing it better in America. Can we partner together? So if you've read or heard about the Barstool Fund that is saving businesses all across the country, we are helping them manage that. It is flowing through the 30-Day Fund. So this is Virginia leading the way, leading the nation. We have raised collectively $45 million, all going to small business owners. Not a single dime is paid for expenses. We're a zero overhead operation. My wife and I pick up the tab for all the expenses. And we've saved north of 2,600 small businesses across America. So when Virginians have an idea, when we roll up our sleeves, we can lead.
Well, you talk about small businesses. That's really the heart and soul of, you hear numbers thrown around and not exactly what they are, but they always say 80 or 85% of the jobs are created by small businesses. It's funny when you go to the government and you're a small business, they say, oh, you have 500 employees. I mean, that's their small business, or 50 employees. And really it's 15 employees is a small business in America.
Well, that was it, and that's who we targeted with the 30-Day Fund, which is businesses between the size of 3 employees to 30. We felt that was the most at risk during this pandemic, and
that's the entrepreneurs.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And
right.
They felt unseen and unheard by government. I'd probably say only 10% of the people that we funded got some sort of form of PPE or PPP or SBA loan. These are the folks that are caught between the couch cushions.
Right.
They don't have a fancy lawyer or have the president of the local bank on their phone,
right.
and that's putting them at the front of the line.
Right.
And those are the people that need the help the most.
Right. Exactly. Well, another topic I think we want to talk about, obviously, again, let's lean it towards COVID again.
Absolutely.
And that's our churches.
Sure.
And I noticed on your card you said you want to protect our sacred religious liberties, open churches again. Somehow the government has even the Supreme Court got in last week or so about, you can't control church, but we'll let them open at 25%. I thought the Supreme Court was all about is it constitutional or not? Now they're making laws. So that's kind of the tendency of courts throughout our country. A lot of these liberal courts have gone into lawmaking. I mean,
they've gone awry. And I mean, I agree with Neil Gorsuch, who said he could not believe that government was allowing casinos to open, but not churches. We have ABC stores and Sam's Club and Walmart open.
Exactly.
But you and I were told that we couldn't go to midnight services this past Christmas Eve because the coronavirus evidently is a little more potent after midnight.
Right,
is that right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's just, if you bet me, hey Pete, there's going to be something that happens that keeps Americans and Virginians away from church for a year, I'd say I can't fathom that.
Right.
But that's exactly what happened. So we need to be sticking up for and standing up for our religious liberties. And as your next governor of Virginia, I'm going to do exactly that.
Because churches, people don't realize that are non-churched, that church is your family. So if you can sit around the table with your secular family, then your spiritual family ought to be exactly the same thing. I mean, that's how we survive. We're a three-legged stool. You got to have the spiritual, the physical, the emotional.
Absolutely. And government is gone out of its way to prioritize the custom suit operation, right? Where you can get your fancy clothes or liquor or casino or you name it, but not your church or synagogue or and it's wrong. And it is hurting America. It is hurting Virginia. It's killing our families and our faith, and we need to overcome it. He will make us strong, and we will get through this, but you need a champion, and as the next conservative governor of Virginia, I will be that champion and fight for you.
In my election as running for mayor, I use that word championing a lot, and I really think that's an important role of a leader in a community or a state, and that's to be a champion because, like you said, if all you do is go around and say, we had a president do that in a few years ago, oh, America can't do anything, we're at the worst we're ever going to be, instead of saying, then we had a president that said the complete opposite, that says we're the greatest thing on the earth. So, and guess what? Things happen when you have positive attitudes and a champion leading the charge. And I think that's what we need in the state level, as well as local and anywhere else. Family. I mean, a champion is a good word. I mean,
well, look,
we haven't heard a lot of
it. Well, we haven't been winning a lot, right? Virginia's been lagging, and look, I at heart am an optimist. You can't be an entrepreneur without being an optimist. Now, I am a realist, and that's why in my campaign, I'm not promising 200 different things. I'm not putting out 50 position papers. We are in the midst of a horrible crisis. And in a horrible crisis, you keep the main thing the main thing. We're focused on opening up our schools, getting them back 5 days a week, every week, with a teacher in every classroom. That's the basics that government is not doing right now. Saving the backbone of our community and heartbeat of our economy, small business. And lastly, restoring our civil liberties and rights of law-abiding citizens. How often do we hear from the extremists in Richmond, oh my gosh, we just need to coddle the criminals and we're going to do X and Y and Z for the criminals. Hey, I don't have a problem with some modernization and some criminal justice reform, but I got to tell you, it shouldn't be at the expense of your Second Amendment rights or my First Amendment rights and our religious liberties. Absolutely not. And I will fight and be a champion for our civil liberties as the next governor of Virginia, and I'll do it with a smile on my face.
Well, that's what we want. You mentioned the Second Amendment. That's been a push for a lot of candidates over the last year or so, and you've seen the community uprise over it. But I've got a feeling that we're going to give you the Second Amendment, but over here in the back, how we talk over here and over here you hear another one, there's no ammunition. Well, and where's it go? So you can have your gun, but you ain't gonna buy no bullets.
Oh, they just wanted to have it like a paperweight in in your safe or on your desk.
Exactly.
It's if there ever was a poster child for why we have a Second Amendment in America and Virginia and why it's sacred, wasn't it last year? I mean, we had our capital city of Richmond for the better part of 4 to 6 weeks was being run by a mob. It was. The police were told to stand down. And, I got to tell you, my wife and I had a personal experience with that. We have a small share in a small business on Broad Street in Richmond. And about the second night of riots, 1 o'clock in the morning, bricks came through the storefront window of that shop. A couple of woke kids piled through the glass and went in and proceeded to loot and pillage and steal nearly everything in the showroom. What was left over was covered in blood, and there wasn't a police officer in sight. And it wasn't the police officer's fault. The mayor of Richmond, who is the crony of Terry McAuliffe, told the police to stand down. And guess what? When I'm governor of Virginia, that will not happen on my watch. We will not only fund the police, we will give respect to the police. They will have the training and the equipment and the salaries that they so desperately need and deserve for putting their lives on the line for us every single day. And we're going to make sure that our Second Amendment rights are restored and our First Amendment rights are restored, and that we're actually fighting crime in our communities. Crime has been on the upswing throughout Virginia in the past year. That is wrong. These are the basics of government too. Right. I'm not talking about partisan issues.
These are new ideas.
Yeah, this isn't an R or a D thing.
Right,
this is fighting crime in your neighborhood. Should we make sure that our police are funded and are respected and have the training and equipment they need? Yes, I think we should. This isn't revolutionary.
Right.
This is the basics.
Right. So we've got, even when they've surveyed people in the inner cities, they don't want to defund the police. They want a stronger police force. Now they don't want misuse of the police, but at the same time they don't want to do away with it.
That's exactly
and
it.
So
that's exactly it.
So I think that's something that message hasn't got out
Right.
too much. Well, it's going to be a long year. The election is in November, and we need to have you back again as it goes on. I'm sure you're going to be beating the street, so to speak. Your crew will be hauling you. We're
going to be going everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
And so I'm sure you will come back through the valley again, and we want to invite you back so you can fill us in on what's happened during the few months you've been on the street, and we'll see more of you in the news, I'm sure.
Well, look, I would absolutely love it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to be in the valley so often. Y'all might think I'm living in your guest bedroom,
right.
But no, the valley is absolutely key to us and to our strategy. And my wife and I live not too far away in Charlottesville. Right. So,
well, we hope you can get into the 4 cities that control our election. That's really the crux, I think, of.
Well, and that's where we have our greatest opportunity. I lived in Fairfax County for nearly 20 years, and I got to tell you, independents and lean Democrats, these are folks who never gave Republicans for the past 10 years the time of day,
right,
are angry about the schools being locked, their kids suffering, they're paying taxes, they're not getting a rebate, they want the schools open, they want it 5 days a week, and they want it now. And we are going to do better in the suburbs, better in Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, you name it, than any other Republican in a long, long time. And we're going to win this race. And I can't wait to come back with you. And
I appreciate that. Thanks, Pete. Again, remember the election is in November, so it'll be here before you know it.
I know, and the convention is in May. So if you like what you see, go to PeteSnyder.com. Please sign up to be a convention delegate for us. Kick the tires on me. I'd love to have your support and earn your support. I'm not perfect, but I'll do everything I can to make you proud and get Virginia leading again.
Thanks again, Pete. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.